What happens when a nuclear submarine, armed, secret, and unstoppable, vanishes without a trace? And what if the clues to its fate are buried not in headlines, but in the whispers of the ocean itself? On May 27, 1968, the USS Scorpion, SSN 589, failed to return to Norfolk, Virginia. 99 men were aboard when she disappeared somewhere in the vast Atlantic. Her last transmission, sent late on May 20th, was calm, routine, and final. Then silence. No distress call, no signal, nothing but empty ocean. Within hours, the Navy launched a massive search. Dozens of ships, scores of aircraft, endless miles of sea. Families waited by phones that never rang, clinging to fading hope. But behind the public search, a quieter mission had already begun, one hidden from the world. Inside a classified facility, analysts began listening to the ocean itself. While the public watched a massive search unfold across the Atlantic, another, quieter operation was already in motion. One that would never appear in newspapers. For the families waiting at home, the Navy's efforts looked exhaustive. Between May 28th and 30th, 55 ships and 35 aircraft combed the ocean, tracing grid after grid in search of the missing USS Scorpion. Yet beneath this visible effort, in sealed rooms guarded by armed Marines, intelligence officers were analyzing a single thread of sound, the secret recording from the Navy's classified SOSUS hydrophone network. That recording from May 22nd revealed 15 distinct acoustic events over just 3 minutes, brief bursts, low-frequency rumbles, and then silence. It was the signature of a disaster. Analysts believed it represented the moment when the submarine catastrophically failed at depth, roughly 400 nautical miles southwest of the Azores. But confirming that theory meant revealing the very existence of SOS-US, a top-secret Cold War listening web designed to track Soviet submarines. Revealing SOS-S would risk national security, so the Navy could not disclose what they truly knew. The official search continued as a public operation, while the real analysis remained behind locked doors. Only a handful of people knew that the faint echoes from the deep had already narrowed the search zone dramatically. What the world saw was a conventional rescue mission. What it didn't see was a race between secrecy and truth, an effort to find not just a lost submarine, but the line between revelation and national defense. When the first desperate searches brought back nothing but silence, the Navy turned to science. If the USS Scorpion could not be found by sight, perhaps she could be found by probability. Under the guidance of mathematician John P. Craven, the Navy employed a new method called Bayesian search theory, a system that used statistics, prior knowledge, and updated probabilities to locate something lost in the vastness of the sea. Each new piece of data refined the map. Every failed pass told them where not to look, bringing them closer to where the Scorpion must be. While the world believed the search was still wide open, the real hunt had already narrowed to a patch of ocean 400 nautical miles southwest of the Azores. Yet the final confirmation couldn't come from numbers. It had to come from the sea itself. Months passed, and by late October 1968, the Navy deployed the oceanographic research ship USNS Mizar. Her mission? To descend into the abyss and capture proof. Beneath nearly 9,800 feet of crushing pressure, Mizar's towed camera sled began transmitting blurred images of something unnatural on the seabed. At first, only fragments appeared: twisted steel, torn plating, scattered debris. Then, unmistakably, the shattered hull of a submarine emerged from the gloom. It wasn't so much a discovery as a confirmation. Everything the analysts had modeled matched perfectly. The location, the depth, the type of acoustic collapse. The Scorpion lay exactly where mathematics and the ocean's whispers had predicted. The mystery had shifted. What began as a search for a missing submarine was now an investigation into how she had died. The ocean had given up her secret, but only part of it. The images retrieved from the ocean floor told a story that numbers alone never could. The USS Scorpion was not lying whole on the seabed. She had come apart in the descent, her body broken by the crushing weight of the Atlantic. From the first clear passes, investigators saw the submarine had fractured into two main sections, separated by hundreds of feet of wreckage. The break originated in the operations compartment, near frame 33, right in the heart of the ship. The rupture spread aft, ripping through bulkheads and conduits until it reached frame 67, where the pressure hull changed shape from conical to cylindrical. There, under overwhelming pressure, the Scorpion tore in two. Experts ruled out an external explosion almost immediately. The wreck showed no signs of a violent outward blast, no bubble pulse, no scattered shrapnel beyond the collapse zone. Instead, the damage was symmetrical, clean, and inward. The steel had been crushed evenly from all directions, as though the sea itself had clenched its fist around the vessel. Calculations indicated the implosion began around 1530 feet, 466 meters, just beyond the submarine's designed crush depth. Once the hull failed, the descent became unstoppable. The engine room telescoped inward by nearly 50 feet, collapsing like an accordion. The propulsion shaft was forced out, not by explosion, but by compression, the stern folding in upon itself. In the operations compartment, where sailors once navigated and commanded the ship, there was nothing left but twisted framework. The entire section had been obliterated by pressure. It was here, investigators concluded, that the Scorpion had first begun to fail, her final collapse cascading through the hull in milliseconds. While the aft hull of the USS Scorpion had been torn apart by unimaginable pressure, the forward section told a very different story. Amid the wreckage, the bow remained remarkably intact, almost serene in contrast to the devastation behind it. Investigators studying the footage could see that the torpedo room and forward compartments had survived the implosion largely undistorted. The bow had struck the sea floor hard, plowing a deep trench into the soft sediment, a scar that testified to the violence of impact.
The original schematics show the
Yet
intake
the
valve
internal
right here.
bulkheads, frames, and even hatches of the forward spaces were still visible, allowing analysts to map each section in detail. This contrast between the crushed aft and the preserved bow raised a crucial question. If the submarine had been destroyed by an internal explosion, such as a torpedo detonation, then why was the torpedo room still intact? The evidence suggested a different story entirely. The destruction had not begun at the front. It had started elsewhere, perhaps deep within the engineering sections, where a structural failure or flooding event caused the boat to lose buoyancy and descend uncontrollably. By the time the Scorpion reached her crush depth, the bow compartments were already flooded or sealed, making them resistant to the violent implosion that consumed the rear. As the hull collapsed behind it, the bow endured the plunge. Its pressure equalized with the surrounding water. It was preserved by the very force that destroyed everything else. The more investigators studied the bow, the more one mystery refused to fade: the torpedo room paradox. If the Scorpion had been lost to an internal explosion, The torpedo room should have been obliterated, yet it wasn't. The compartment was damaged, yes, but it was still recognizable. Bulkheads stood where they should. Pipes and frames were bent but not shattered. Only one key feature was missing: the forward hatch of the escape trunk. It hadn't been cracked or blown off from the inside. It had been ripped outward, torn away by overwhelming external pressure. According to naval structures expert Peter Palermo, this meant one thing: when the submarine imploded, the torpedo room was already flooded, its internal pressure equal to the crushing sea around it. This simple observation rewrote the narrative. If the torpedo room was flooded before the implosion, then there could have been no detonation inside it. An explosion would have shredded the compartment from within, scattering debris outward. Instead, the torpedo room had remained intact, proof that the initial failure began elsewhere, possibly in the machinery spaces or near the trash disposal unit, where a rupture could allow seawater to pour in. In the end, the paradox was no paradox at all. The intact torpedo room didn't conceal the cause, it revealed it. The Scorpion had already lost her fight long before she reached crush depth. The final implosion was not the beginning of disaster, it was its inevitable end. Once the physical evidence had been catalogued, the investigation turned to a harder question. Why had the USS Scorpion failed in the first place? The wreck told a clear story of implosion, but not the trigger that set everything in motion. Across naval circles, laboratories, and declassified reports, competing theories began to collide. Every theory had to pass two tests. It had to explain the acoustic data captured by the Navy's SOSUS network, and it had to fit the damage pattern on the seafloor. The Naval Ordnance Laboratory began by ruling out the most dramatic ideas. The first acoustic event recorded on May 22nd, they said, was not caused by a massive explosion, either internal or external. None of the 15 recorded sounds matched the signature of a blast wave. That finding eliminated both external attack scenarios and internal detonation claims. The once whispered Soviet torpedo theory, a Cold War rumor suggesting the Scorpion had been sunk by a Russian submarine, collapsed under scrutiny. There were no impact holes, no shrapnel, no burn marks. As one U.S. submarine captain later put it, no Soviet sub in 1968 had the stealth, sensors, or torpedoes to find and kill a skipjack-class boat. If not an attack, then perhaps an accident inside the Scorpion. One popular theory blamed a hydrogen explosion in the battery compartment, caused when the lead-acid batteries vented hydrogen gas that ignited. Retired Admiral Dave Oliver and acoustics expert Bruce Rule supported this idea, noting one smaller sound on the SOSUS tape that could fit a low-level pop.
Look at the oscillation in
Yet
the
it failed the second test. A battery fire could damage equipment, but it couldn't explain the rapid, uncontrolled flooding or total loss of buoyancy that followed. Attention then shifted toward the Mark 37 torpedo carried on board. Its silver-zinc batteries were known to overheat and, in extreme cases, could trigger a low-order explosion capable of igniting the warhead. Some even speculated that a hot-run torpedo might have armed itself inside the tube, forcing the crew to attempt an emergency shutdown. But again, the wreck's condition refuted that idea. The torpedo room was dented but intact. No outward blast pattern, no torn hatches, no burn residue. Finally, the theory that best matched both the physics and the wreckage emerged. A failure of the trash disposal unit, a large overboard discharge valve located near the submarine center. If that valve malfunctioned, seawater could rush directly into the machinery spaces, flooding the compartments in seconds. The influx would make the vessel heavy, driving it downwards faster and faster until the hull reached crush depth. This scenario explained both the path of flooding and the survival of the forward section, which had already equalized with the surrounding pressure. In the end, the Court of Inquiry convened in 1968 and later declassified in 1993, refused to name a single definitive cause. Its final report listed several possible mechanical or torpedo-related failures, leaving the story unresolved. What was certain, however, was the sequence of her death: a flooding event, a loss of buoyancy, a plunge beyond endurance, and an implosion that ended in seconds. When the last analysis was done and the final charts were folded away, one truth remained. The USS Scorpion had not exploded. She had imploded, crushed under the relentless pressure of the deep. The cause may still be debated, but her end was certain. In just a few seconds, 99 souls vanished beneath nearly 10,000 feet of water, leaving behind only silence and questions. Alongside the USS Thresher, she became one of only 2 nuclear submarines the U.S. Navy ever lost. The site, lying roughly 400 nautical miles southwest of the Azores, remains a protected war grave. Every few years, Navy expeditions quietly return, checking for movement, testing the water for any trace of radioactive release from the reactor or the 2 nuclear-tipped torpedoes still on board. Each report comes back the same. The ocean holds her tightly, untouched, undisturbed, and at peace. Time has turned the wreck of the Scorpion into a monument to silence, a reminder of courage, secrecy, and the cost of exploration beneath the sea. The ocean never forgets, but it rarely explains. The men of the Scorpion rest there still, beyond light and sound, guardians of their own story, written in pressure and steel. The story of the USS Scorpion reminds us that even in failure, there is dignity. Even in silence, there is legacy. Every choice we make, every risk we take, echoes beyond our time. Like the men who sailed into the deep, we too must face the unknown with courage, even when the outcome is uncertain. If this story moved you, let it remind you that history is not just about ships and steel. It's about people, sacrifice, and memory. Share your thoughts below. What does courage mean to you? And if you'd like to journey with us through more forgotten chapters of history, subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story the ocean tried to keep.